Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Fleeting Thoughts podcast. I am Joe. In this episode, I talked to Joey Edwards. Joey and I have been friends for quite a while now, and Joey is an incredible artist. Joey makes weird and wonderful things. In order to really get an idea of what Joey does, you have to go to his website, which is edwardsartanddesign.com. In this episode, Joey and I talk about his day job. He works in IT, and we talk about how COVID has affected that. We also talk about Joey's new custom-built PC. Then we talk about his art career and how COVID has changed the way he interacts with the public. Go to Twitch at Joey Edwards to watch Joey make his art. It's very, very cool. He has a growing community on that channel, so check that out. That's Twitch at JO3Y3DWARDS. And it is the same on Instagram at JO3Y3DWARDS. For more from me, go to joesnotesblog.com. I also started a YouTube channel called Customer Service Man and a website, customerserviceman.com, where I talk about customer service, so make sure to check that out as well. So, Joey, this is all about you. We want to learn about you and your current life, your current occupation, your current artistic expressions. I want to know more about what you have going on. So let's start with the not so fun day job stuff.
Not so fun day job.
Can you talk about your day job? A lot of artists have day jobs.
Totally.
And it's not something I want to spend a lot of time on, but I want to hear a little bit about it because I know you have some technical skills in that realm, and that's going to segue nicely into the new PC that you bought, which I'd love to talk about.
Sure.
And that will segue into what you're doing with your art and with Twitch.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So I'm just curious, what you don't have to say who you work for, but what kind of a day job do you have?
Yeah, so what I do is general IT support for a company. There we go.
Internal, IT.
Yeah. And so my customers are internal customers. I don't deal with like just outside people very often unless it's a vendor. But I just do day-to-day tech support, kind of just entry-level IT stuff with a big focus on customer service.
Nice. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So prior to 2020, you went to an office. Was it like a cubicle?
It started off as a cubicle. So I used to work for a different company called Oregon Medical Group, and in there I was doing basically the same level of IT work I am doing now, where I do remote desktop support, in-person support, cable management, like going up to people's workstations. They have a problem, like whatever. If it's plugged into a wall, it has electricity running through it, and it's not treating them right, or it's getting in the way of doing whatever they do. It's my job to get that working again. And so before I moved to Portland in the end of 2019, I guess, end of 2019 is when I moved to Portland. That's what I was doing before. And then when I got up here, I got another job just with not outside of the medical industry doing a similar level of support. And so when I got my job up here, I was working out of a cubicle, and then we shortly thereafter we moved into a much larger location, and then the pandemic hit and shut everything down. And so for the most part, over 2020, I've been working at home doing remote support.
Sure. Has that been much of a impediment? Does it make it? I mean, if there aren't, because there's still people doing their jobs that you need to make sure their computers are working. So
right.
Has it just been like almost like, why weren't we doing this before? Like, why am I not just doing
there's
IT
a lot of that, yeah. Like I can tell you my commute has gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
Not having to go in every
you
day.
just get in your van, pull back in and go, oh, I'm at the office now.
Yeah. There's not a lot of reason to put on hard pants.
just real like yoga pants or whatever.
Yeah.
Your spandex. Weird. So not much different. You can still do remote tech services. I mean,
yeah. So like, I think for the most part, a lot of people that work in different office environments are reluctant to change the way they've been doing things successfully for many years. IT has evolved quite a bit in the last 10 years to support an environment where you can work remotely. Like if the pandemic had hit in the way that it hit in 2020, I would say in 2002, it would have been a completely different type of environment, we might be facing a lot more hardships across the board from all kinds of businesses not knowing how to adapt to a remote environment. But now with the advent of Zoom and Teams and those types of communication platforms, we're able to facilitate a lot of the day-to-day business without the need of working within a traditional office. There's a lot to be said for having a traditional office, but it's not as important, I think, as a lot of people thought it was.
Yeah. I think that a lot of companies have found that they can keep going, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
And IT seems kind of perfect for that type of thing. My brother does a different type of IT work, and he's been doing his work from home, and he goes in like once a week now. And it seemed to have no change on his actual duties, like what he actually gets done from week to week. I think before he would go to work and you have some downtime and you would spend it, on the computer or trying to learn new things. And now he just does that from home. And whenever a job comes in, he tries to get it done. He works for a school district, so it's just an internal IT type job.
Yeah, totally. And my line of work of doing just remote support in general, and the way I've supported people before the pandemic and the way I'm supporting people during the pandemic, it's been very similar. Whereas before, I think that there'd be a lot more like personal interaction, going up to someone's desk and then talking with them face to face. I can still maintain that face-to-face communication the same way I was doing it before, but I just do it through a video screen as opposed to anything else. So there's less hands-on for sure, but the amount of actual reporting, or not reporting, but just being able to get in there, understanding what the nature of the problem is, why they need to do a certain thing a certain way, and then figuring out the best way to help them out. All of the theory behind that is still just as intact as it was before, but you just use a new tool chest to jump into things. And people, it seems like they're a lot more willing to embrace technology now that they need it, whereas before, like, they would only embrace it if they had to.
Yeah, I remember. I think before we would talk about IT, and there would be certain employees who just like really were kind of helpless, and now that you're not just right there ready to help them, I'm sure that kind of forces them to be a little bit more clear about what their problem is, maybe be a little bit more proactive about trying to solve it, maybe a little bit on their own or something like that. Is that what you mean?
There's more of that, but I'm kind of thinking of like embracing new technology as opposed to people putting away certain amounts of their time to dedicate it to learning new things so that they don't run into the same problems over and over again.
Yeah.
Like, I think to some people, IT is a tool. And so if they run into a situation where they don't have that tool in their tool chest, they're not going to learn that tool. They're doing their own thing. And so they'll reach for IT to do those things rather than learn how to do them themselves. That's totally fine. Like, you do you excel at these other things, and we're here to help support you in that. So use us. It's literally our job to help you out. I think sometimes a lot of people don't want to ask those questions of IT because they see us as people as opposed to that being a tool.
Oh, okay.
And so they don't want to bother us with their problems, and then they'll sit there and suffer, and then it'll
get worse.
It'll stew. It'll get worse, and people just kind of end up just freaking out.
Yeah,
not really freaking out, but like,
no, I know what you mean. Get frustrated, and
exactly,
then you have
more than they should have.
Yeah.
Whereas if they just would have started that conversation earlier, we could have got in there and helped them out. But,
so they should just be thinking of you as tools instead of human beings.
Yeah, we don't need humans. Are overrated.
That's true. That is very true.
No, but I guess what I meant was
no. I know what you mean. I'm just kidding.
I guess I kind of got
like they should not be so worried about the fact that you might judge them because they don't know what they're doing, and just reach out and just ask for help.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like people don't want to go to the doctor.
Yeah,
and they just go to the doctor and get help.
Right.
Like, it's okay. You're not perfect. Everybody's got their specialties and their things that they don't know about. But if you wait too long to go to the doctor, it's going to get worse, and you're going to have a harder time.
Right, yeah. And the longer you put off doing those little tiny things, the worse it's going to be in the long run, the more time you're going to have to dedicate to fixing it later on. But I guess, more to my point earlier was, before the pandemic, where people could avoid using platforms like Teams and things like that, it was really, really hard to move people in a direction of using that as a platform for communication. Yeah. They're like, well, why do we do that when we have these conference rooms? Yeah. When we can just meet. It's easier for me to walk over here, not have to touch a computer.
Sure.
But now people embrace these technologies, and
Yeah.
they're just really, really enjoying all the different things that these things have always offered, but they
Yeah.
just were reluctant to, dip their toe into the pool to try them out.
Yeah. Well, especially like I would assume like older administrators and things like that who are used to the boardroom, who kind of like maybe being at the head of the room and stuff like that. There's something nice about being in person, but there's also something that can be inefficient about having everybody have to go to a room, wait for everybody to show up. You can hear everybody doing their own thing and all that. I guess one of the downsides to doing everything on like Zoom is it's a little bit, people end up interrupting each other or talking over each other. Does that happen more than in a conference room where you can physically read the signs? Because a lot of times you're only looking at one person's screen, the person who's talking at the moment, and you want to get your word in there, but it's hard to indicate that.
Yeah, with technology, there's a lot of different ways to the way technology is adapted in that exact type of scenario. People have had to adapt to.
Yeah.
So with talking over each other, for example, with Zoom or Teams or things like that, it will really only allow one audio channel to come through at a time. And so if people start talking over each other, one person can't be heard at all. And so people realize that by being louder, that's not helping their case. They have been conditioned to like learn how to like wait their turn or use other type of pieces of technology to help them out, like the little button that says raise my hand, like I have a question now. So,
oh, that's perfect. I don't use Teams or Zoom almost at all. My job, I still go, it's retail, and so I just go when I have face-to-face with customers. I put my face right up against theirs, and we touch masks, and then it's enjoyable.
Sniff each other.
Oh yeah.
You smell
like dogs. Yeah, this smells like good customer service right now. Oh, you need a blue pen. I can tell.
You know what's another interesting thing about like just having customer service in a remote, really connected world with like IT is that the more forward thinking and I guess for lack of a better term, good that your department is at executing their IT, the more invisible they are to everybody else, because everyone else is just simply able to work and they're able to do all the things that they want to do without any interference. And the only time anything comes up, they're like, oh yeah, we have IT for that. But really, IT has been working behind the scenes the entire time, facilitating everything that they do and allowing that to exist. So like, for example, like my company that I work for now was very, very forward thinking and they replaced everyone's desktop computers a couple of years back with like Surface technology, like the Surface Pro computers. And so when the pandemic hit, all of a sudden everyone could just literally fold up their computer and take it with them, because in the office environment, everyone's working off Surface Pros with docking stations. So it feels like a normal traditional workstation where you have two monitors plus a third monitor if you count the Surface, but
and a keyboard.
Now they can go home and do the same thing and just fold their computer up, and they don't have to like have a different machine. They don't have to rely on their own technology. It's all provided.
You don't have to buy a whole set of laptops or Google Chromebooks just to be able to do Zoom from home and all that. And
everything's built in, everything's ready to go. And it was we were able to take our entire workforce and have them working from home within 24 hours.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I've been enjoying hearing different people's stories about how, like roughly around March when it was decided to send people home to do a lockdown and to that's when businesses were forced to make decisions, and it's interesting to see the different solutions to that problem, because it's I mean, generally speaking, in business and in life, you're surprised by things and then you just have to adapt or fail or just give up, it seems. And it's really, I mean, not fail in like a bad way, but like sometimes it's too much and you don't have the option to like go be a barber or go be a tattoo artist. That was not an option. You can't do that from home, and you can't, or you could get in trouble, if you start having people over your house or something. So it's interesting. I part of the reason I wanted to do some interviews with people was to learn about their the changes that happened because of COVID, because I think a lot of people don't know other people's experiences with
it. And it really depends on where they were at in life. Like, I feel like I'm very lucky and grateful for where I was at in my professional and my personal life at the time that all of this went down. I know that if the same thing happened like 10 years before this, it would have been a very different outcome, like working and relying on retail management to deal with all of that and customer service and having to go in I remember
Yeah.
times of when it was dangerous to go in to my old job, not because like there was like threats of violence or anything like that, but like a snowstorm, for example. Like
Sure.
it was the town I lived in got hit with like 3 feet of snow, and it was not used to snow. There'd be snow like every maybe 5 or 6 years would be a snowstorm that bad, but it effectively would just ground out the town. Whereas like if you lived in the East Coast, it would be what this happens every day. Just get used to it.
Yeah, all winter.
But because I was the manager of a retail location, like I was expected to go in no matter what. I had to be there because even though that it was unsafe for me to travel and it was unsafe for my employees to get there to open the doors, people were going to find a way to go to the mall and freaking go shopping. We had to be there to facilitate that so we can continue to make money.
Yeah.
And so,
well, and you don't have enough power as a store manager working for a corporation to make that decision like you would if you own the place. If you own the place, you'd be like, hey, this is a good opportunity to stay home and to stay safer and take a hit on the sales I might make, which would be very little anyway, because most people aren't going to be out on a big snow day like that.
Exactly. And it's funny because it takes something like a pandemic, or it takes something where people are going to get hurt or they're going to get injured, or it's going to generally ill affect someone's life substantially if something happens, to make it not okay to risk human life just so that we can make a little bit extra money. Like one employee getting to the mall trying to work that gets hit by a car or like rolls off the side of the road and dies would change the temperature for forcing your employees to come in through unsafe environments to open up like a location like that. But that didn't exist. Nothing like that had happened yet in that case. So
they're willing to risk it, but at that point too, a lot of lower level employees simply wouldn't go in. Like they have the opportunity to just say, well, I can't come in. Too bad. But that's I had that.
It's weird though, because like I don't work in retail anymore, and I work in an office environment, and I have done that for about 7 years now. And it's just amazing how much more valued I feel as an employee working outside of retail, because if there is a snow day, we'll shut down. It's fine.
Yeah.
Our profit doesn't necessarily rely on someone coming in and making a couple $3 purchases to justify us coming into the office.
Yeah,
it's not worth it.
You probably work more directly with the higher ups anyway.
Sure.
Whereas,
and like they have a much better concept of like HR, where is like if I was to go into the office or be forced to come into the office to work to do a job, and then something happened to me on the way there, but because my office did that, I could sue my office, and that would be, and I guess maybe it's because the company is more of a local level rather than like a national thing, where like I am more of a real individual person that would be affected by this.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the corporate offices are, in other states, they don't have any clue what's going on locally half the time, and they rely on the store managers and district managers to make decisions, and a lot of times they just err on the side of the show must go on.
Yeah,
and they especially in retail, which is declining over the last 5 to 10 years anyway, they see that and they're like, we can't miss an opportunity to make that money. Yeah. And I get their position, and low-level employees are fairly easy to replace, and they don't invest in them. So it's like that's not the goal. Yeah. That's not their idea. They don't need people to be there for 10 years and retire at 60. Not that,
but at the same time, with the pandemic, it's shined that light on how important those roles are in society.
I hope so.
Like with the frontline workers, like everyone needs those people to be in their positions, at least in certain types of retail locations, so that society can continue to function at some level.
I think people should appreciate that people do those jobs, even if they're not super exciting. And I think that I'm lucky that my place didn't close, and I got to go to work, and I got to get paid, and I didn't have to worry about much. What's kind of nice though is now, before the pandemic, if you're in retail and somebody has kind of like a flu or a cold or something, they would just go to work, because most of the time it was too annoying, and managers would be like, well, how bad is it? Do you need a doctor? No, then just try to come in, try to make it, see how it goes. Yeah. And now it's like, if you have the sniffles or if you feel poor, and sick time is just not that big of a deal to use anymore. And I think that it was there for a reason, and people should use sick time. Don't get other people sick, even if it's not COVID. I don't want to get the flu. I don't want to get a cold. I don't want to get herpes. I don't want to get gonorrhea, syphilis.
There's a reason shingles. Sick time exists. Like, I know that there's been many times where working in a retail environment where I'd be a little sick, And had I just
I went in every time.
taken the time to stay home, heal up, and then be good the next day, I would have been fine. But I felt like I couldn't do that because of like
You feel obligated to
I feel
go.
obligated to go, or I'd let someone down, or
Yeah.
I'd stress everyone
Or
else
it'd be
out
harder
because
because
they'd
they
be picking up the
couldn't
slack.
get-
Yeah.
And you are making it harder on them half the time because they can't get somebody to come in because they don't have somebody who's available on a moment's notice. And sometimes that's just how it goes. But now it's like if somebody gives you a hard time about sick time, they just don't give you a hard time about it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It's
hey,
more
you feel
accepted,
sick,
like,
then stay
you
home.
shouldn't
We
be
don't
here
want
if
to.
you don't feel well.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is
Well,
encouraged. That was
and we all
yeah.
know our bodies differently, and some people think they're sick all the time, and at some point they, you gotta actually be sick. But it's something to be aware of, and not just take for granted that you won't make other people sick. You might. So let's talk a little bit more about. So you just got a new computer. Is your computer all built and ready to go?
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay.
It's all
I saw some
tuned up,
some
and running.
videos and some photos, got colors, and it's all sweet.
It's so
and-
fancy. It's weird having a modern computer. I haven't had one that's been even semi-modern for 10 years.
Yeah. You can get away
Well,
with lesser,
like a working
older
computer,
technology.
Like there was, so in the last, I'd say like 15, 20 years, I've built 2 other computers, or I saying that I built them is a gross overstatement. I had help. I threw money at people who were really excited about building computers.
Yeah.
And they picked all the parts out, and then I let them just do their thing and follow their bliss and had fun building a whole new PC within a budget. And one of those was a work computer that I had made, or that I worked with to do video stuff on and other things. And I ended up really just not doing a lot with it once it was in place. And then the other computer was more of just a passion project for having like a media center within my like entertainment center.
Yeah.
So neither of these computers were very powerful, like exceptionally powerful, at least to do a lot of gaming or other PC related content on. But that's the one I have now is quite a bit stronger and better than those ones, and I'm actually using it effectively, which feels really good.
Nice. Can you tell me a little bit about the specs, processor, graphics card,
Oh gosh,
RAM? Just you don't.
yeah,
have to
I
get specific.
can give you
Just,
the
like,
give you the
what-
gross basics.
i7,
of it.
i9. Is it Intel or is it AMD? Probably.
It's I believe it's AMD. Now this is the one of the most embarrassing things about me is that so my passions lie in art, not necessarily in technology.
That's
which
fine.
is funny because I work in IT,
Yeah.
but it's just like building this computer was incredibly stressful for me because I had never been in a position to have to do all this by myself.
Yeah.
So I did have help picking out some parts, which was really helpful. Knowing which parts to do. PCPartPicker.com is great for that because you can it knows what parts work with others. So as you start adding things to your list, it'll tell you if something's not going to work, like with your case, or if you get the processor and you pick the wrong motherboard, it'll tell you, hey, this isn't going to plug in there. It's a waste of $400 if you go that route. So, but yeah, so with my computer, I believe it's AMD. I have a Ryzen 3 processor it's like the 300 series. I think it's a 3800.
Okay.
Ryzen's
AMD.
AMD. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
AMD
well, thank
Ryzen.
you. Yeah. So it's an AMD build. For my graphics card, I was able to put the energy out into the ethers to just ask for the graphics card I wanted. And what I say by that is that there's, like I said before, I know people that are way more passionate about the stuff and are constantly trying to get one. I did some research, and the graphics card that I thought that would work best for me in my scenario with what I was going to do with it would just be to get the new RTX 3070.
Okay.
And those are really hard to get right now because of bots and supply chains and things like that. But I asked the right people to keep an eye out for me that were already looking for that kind of stuff, and someone found one. And once I had that, then it's like, okay, cool. I just pulled the trigger on like everything else, and it all kind of came together. Otherwise, as far as the other things that go into it, I have 2 solid state hard drives. I have an M.1.
One of those.
Or M.2?
M.2.
M.2. Yeah.
M.2 is the new one.
That's where I have my operating system running from.
Yeah,
and
those
then
are fast.
I have like a more traditional SSD, like a 2 terabyte one.
More traditional SSD.
Yeah,
Because those are
well,
traditional.
the last time I built a computer, there was like spinning drives on it and stuff.
I know
that's
that's not that old.
Yeah,
That's like 2 years old.
exactly. Yeah,
SSDs have only been like standard in the last couple of years.
yeah. So I have 1 terabyte M.2 that I run my operating system
Yeah.
off, and I keep a lot of my main internal resources on for various
Nice.
programs. And then for storage, I have a normal like a traditional style
SATA.
SATA,
Probably, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Solid state, and that's 2 terabyte. So I have 32 gigs of RAM.
You have a Ryzen 3 and 32 gigs of RAM. That's a ton of RAM.
And you think about all the extra RAM that comes from the graphics card.
And the
too,
graphics
if that's
card.
8 more
that,
gigs.
Is it 8
Yeah.
with that? Jesus criminy, dude.
Well, that's when doing the research for the graphics card. I realized I had to get that kind of graphics card.
Yeah, because you're doing
everything that
something,
came out before it was more expensive and like drastically not as good.
Yeah,
there was no reason to get.
That's why
that
everybody's
one.
buying.
So yeah, it was just like a
8
generational
gigs.
leap.
Jeez.
And trying to think of, and then I can't.
That's the main stuff.
Yeah, those
that's
are the main
stuff.
components. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also bought some
Fans.
extra.
You
I
have a
got
fan in there
fans. I
somewhere.
got a Elgato HD60 Plus to video capture card, so that like I can run a console in there and record video gameplay if I wanted to.
Yeah, Elgato.
And then I got like a couple of extra PCI extensions where I can have a bunch of extra USB ports, that kind of thing.
Nice. Yeah. No, that's super cool.
Yeah.
I sell computers to the general public, and so
Mhm.
I have just the kind of basics as far as what processors are out there and all that.
Gotcha.
But I know that Ryzen and AMD tends to be kind of the go-to nowadays, especially for graphics, because they marry well with the graphics cards that they make and all that. So is it for gaming? Like, are you planning on gaming with it? Like gaming?
It opens the door to me to
Yeah.
gaming, but it's not built for gaming. The reason why I invested all that money into it. So the whole build I think was just about under $2,000.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I tried to keep it under budget, and it basically came out under budget with a couple of exceptions where it would have been more, but I had some credit with like my credit card points for Amazon, for example, that I was able to throw it to bring down the price of some items.
Oh, okay.
And like in Oregon here, they have this really silly thing called it's not silly, it's like a great thing, but for bottle returns, right? They you can buy these bags, and the green bags, and you just fill your cans up, and then you just drop them off at these bottle drop places, and then you can just accumulate credit on them. But what's great about the bottle drop service is that you can cash these out at different stores, and if you use them at different stores as in-store currency, you can get 20% more. And so rather than getting like, I don't know, like $10 back in your cans, you get $12 back in cans. But that adds up pretty dramatically when you have like, you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it over the course of a year. You save up like over $100 of bottle returns, and you can just turn around and then use that as in-store credit to buy Amazon cards, and then use that to buy your computer.
Oh, really?
Cards.
You can use the in-store credit for Amazon, because it's mostly, I mean, they would have given you cash otherwise.
Yeah, you will just use them as point-of-sale activation cards.
Yeah.
So you can just use that as a credit.
I was going to ask like which store you're going to, because it's like probably not Best Buy.
Fred Meyer, yeah.
Yeah. So then you can use it toward Amazon and then just buy it off Amazon. I know. I heard. I had a fellow employee who does that with the green bags, and they are automatically connected to their account of some sort, and so you just give it to them. I don't know why they didn't do that before. Probably
it's great. I think when Oregon introduced it, like the amount of bottle returns had skyrocketed, and they now have, I think, the highest percentage of bottle returns in the nation. Compared to like bottles like sitting in the ditch somewhere, hurting their planet or whatever.
For sure. So one of the main reasons that you got the new computer was to stream content.
Yeah.
And so I was wanting to talk about your we'll talk about the content, but the content is mostly art related, and I want to talk about pre-COVID, because this is, we're in post-COVID now.
Right.
Pre-COVID, you weren't doing that as much, and you were doing more live events and stuff. So can you give us a bit of a background on the type of art that you do, and then what you were doing before COVID to get your art out into the public?
Yeah, totally. So the type of artwork that I do, and the type of artwork that I make, that I sell and make money off of, and kind of propels me forward as being a working artist. There's like two big groups of that right now. One of them is a sculptural work that I make wire sculpture, and I make really spooky wire sculpture, and I make it kind of in the vein of taxidermy. So I'll make these creatures, and I'll make these like skulls, and I'll learn how to wrap wire into different forms that look like bones, and they look like things that should be taxidermy, and then I buy and create my own mounts, and I mount them on there. And I've been selling those at tattoo conventions and other types of oddities and curiosity expos, and I've been doing really well with that. The other type of artwork that I do is I carve pumpkins. All my life, I've been super obsessed with art, and I've been super obsessed with Halloween and spooky stuff. And so I just, over the last, I would say 6 years of my life, I've really reinvested myself into art. And I just have been pushing that really, really hard. And it's been paying off by growing a larger audience around it. And I've been slowly getting better at it, shifting from making more cutout stuff to doing high realism with just kind of shading techniques in pumpkins. And not like real pumpkins. Well, real pumpkins during like Halloween season, but the way that I can have this as a marketable object that people can buy and sell is that I carve on foam pumpkins, or the brand that I've been using predominantly is called Funkins. They're basically these shells that look like real pumpkins, but they're made out of low density polyurethane. You can put a little LED light in them, and then you can just carve away at them, and they carve just like a real pumpkin for the most part if you have the right set of tools to carve into them. And then they last forever. They don't rot. They just stick around. So these are great for businesses if they wanted to, have their logo on a pumpkin to bring out as advertising around the Halloween season. I can carve a pumpkin for them, and then they can bring it out every year. It doesn't rot. It doesn't go away. It's just a new piece of marketing for them. Or for me, I love doing portrait work and that type of style of artwork. So I will just carve the things that I love to carve.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Then,
recently you did the Blue Boy, which is fucking awesome. Actually, honestly, it's amazing. It's because I've watched you do it so much.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not surprised that it looks awesome. It's exactly like the painting, essentially. It's
it was
like
a fun challenge.
Pumpkin carve. I could imagine it was very difficult because it's a painting that is two-dimensional and has a lot of color to it, and is very iconic and classical. But the one that I really thought was amazing, and it took you a long time to do, was the spaceman guy.
Oh,
there was a mirror image of what was going on, and it was this huge pumpkin, and I'm impressed with all of them, but that one kind of stood out to me. Did you do that one for in like a holiday or something? Wasn't there some?
Both of those were for commissions.
Okay.
One of the things that's been great so far is that a lot of my work has been paying for itself moving forward.
Yeah.
So like someone will want a pumpkin for me, and I'll carve it for them. They'll pay me. I'll use that money to buy more pumpkins, or to put into my computer, or whatever else I need to do to just allow this business to keep growing organically.
Sure. And so before COVID, you were going to tattoo conventions. I went to a couple with you, which was super fun. Very interesting crowd, perfect for your type of art. And people would buy things either there or they would contact you later. And with COVID, there's no conventions. There's no live events, typically. So when did that sort of become apparent? And then how did you transition? How did you adapt? Were you scared that you weren't going to be able to do those and it was going to take away all that revenue?
Sure.
Exposure.
Let me think of the best way to explain this. Back in 2017, I had my first experience selling my artwork at a convention center, and I had just come up with this body of work I call cryptodermia, and it's the basis of the wire work that I do now. So, and that came from me just as I'm just gonna keep going back until I can explain forward, I guess.
Yeah, go to when you were a baby.
When I was a little baby, I made my own toys.
I know you did.
I had a lot of fun as a kid, spending time alone making my own things to play with, and
in the dark.
Yep, I would steal. I would hang out upside down, hanging from the closet. If anyone came up to me. No, I just I don't know. Like, my family did well with the financially for a long time as like a middle class family, and then some stuff happened, and I was like the youngest of 5 kids. So for most of my upper siblings, like growing up, my family was fairly well off. They were doing okay as a middle class family, and then we had hit some financial hardship around the time that I was during my period of growing up, and so we didn't have a lot of money for like whatever toy I wanted,
extras,
which is fine because a lot of people lived a lot worse, a lot of people a lot better. It was my experience in life. But for me, it didn't matter as much because if I wanted something, I would just make it. And so I would steal my mom's. My mom was pretty crafty. I think that's maybe where I got a lot of my creativity from. But I would steal her art supplies and I would make my own stuff. Like whether it was taking her floral wire and then learning how to wrap those into making my own toys of what I wanted, or playing with modeling clay or tinfoil. I just would make these little toys and they would fight each other and rip each other apart. But I always consider it as a fun little plaything. And as I got older and I got more driven toward the arts and wanted to start taking actual art classes, I realized that these things I was making as a kid could be art if I just made them bigger. So I found a bigger gauge of wire, and that led me on that path there. As I went on in years, I did art through all college. I spent way too much. I spent much time to be a doctor in college, but just taking art classes over and over and over again. I never did anything with those classes in terms of an art career, but I just went into retail instead and just supported my family at the time. And then that was my focus for a long time. I fell out of being creative, fell out of being artwork centric, and finding that avenue to create. Family thing didn't work out, and I found myself at a point in my life where I could just do what I wanted, and so I wanted to get back to who I was as a person. So I started really, really heavily investing myself and to become an artist again, and to just dig my heels in. It's what made me happiest, was when I was making things. So one day I decided that I wanted a pair of antlers. Like, I like creepy stuff. I like oddities and things like that, and those things are expensive.
Yeah, real taxidermy is
real
really
taxidermy is
expensive.
really expensive. And this creepy shit in general, like, you have to have money to invest in it. And I didn't have that, but like, it was the same kind of energy I brought into making things as a kid. It's like, oh, I can just make it. Let's try that out. So I made myself like a skull with antlers out of wire. And then I went the extra step of painting it. And then when I saw that the way the paint fell over it and the way it was able to bring out the texture of the wire, like, something just clicked in my brain. I'm like, oh, that's cool. What else can I do? And I just really rapidly came up with this entire body of work, which would then become cryptodermia later on. But then I had all that. And then I had this idea like, well, I don't want to work in retail anymore. I want to work in a job where I can just be myself. I can be creative all day. But I still want to pay the bills. What does that look like? And so I came up with the conclusion. It's like, okay, well, I think I want to get back into trying to learn tattooing. And maybe if I can pay for an apprenticeship, had the money to do this with artwork money, then, that should be my path. That's what I want to do. And so that was my goal. And so I just got this body of work together. I had some connections from the place where I got my hair cut, because they help with the local tattoo show there called the Evergreen Tattoo Invitational. It's a recurring show that happens in Eugene, but artists from all over the world come there. It's a really renowned tattoo convention. Because I knew people locally that put it on, I was able to get a booth there. It was the most money I've ever spent on a single thing of artwork it was just a single investment, because it was like $500 just to drop to have a booth. And then everything else I bring there is whatever else I bring there. But it allowed me to have that vehicle to sell my artwork. And that was such a scary experience. And so I just went crazy about it, trying to figure out what was the best way to make my own experience there where people would want to buy my artwork. And I didn't even really know what I was getting into. It was kind of on a whim. And so I went there and I did it, and I made gallery walls. I made my booth as well as I could. I'd never marketed myself in a public environment like that before, let alone even had a pop-up market before. And it just worked. It went really well. One thing that's amazing about selling your work at a tattoo convention is that everyone in that room is there to spend money on art, or they're there to create artwork. So if you are a tattoo artist there, you're coming, that's your business for the weekend, and you have all these people that are flush with money going there to spend money on artwork. And so you're surrounded by all of this creativity and energy that's not only just energy that's there to support like buying artwork, but or is there to support buying artwork. It's there to support artists. And so people would go there and they would stop by my booth and they'd be like, well, that's cool. I want one of those too. Or what was even a higher thing to like as a form of making money by selling your artwork at a tattoo convention is that if you got really standout, weird, interesting art, all of these people that work, they have their own tattoo shops that they want to fill with interesting artwork so that people have stuff to look at while people are coming in there to get artwork from them. And so a lot of my income from the tattoo conventions would then come from other tattoo artists there who made all this money over the weekend and then are looking for something to take home with them. So long story short, what ended up happening was I was really scared about going into this environment that I'd never been before. And it turned out really well. I not only made enough money to pay off my booth fee, but I covered all the money I spent on my booth experience and enough to cover my next booth at the next tattoo convention or next tattoo show that I went into. And so I just kept doing that over and over and over again. I just kept paying all of that forward. And so it changed my life and made me feel like an accomplished artist that like, hey, I'm actually making money now. I have an art business. This is a thing where people are appreciating my work enough to invest in me, and it just changed everything about how I was doing things. It gave me a whole new sense of confidence that people would like love my work enough to take it home with them and just invest in me. So this went on from 2017 to 2020. Every year, I just would do more and more shows. I would make more and more work. It would open up new doors. People would hit me up over new interests in my work, and that was great until 2020 hit. And then 2020, I had a whole bunch of shows. I was going to be in the biggest show I'd ever been in. I had a booth all set to go for Monsterpalooza, which would have been in LA, which is a huge dark art show of people that work in the effects industry showing off all of their monsters. And I was finally going to be able to be in the same room as so many of my heroes in artwork. But 2020 came in here with a pandemic and shut everything down. And then I was just left with this loss of purpose. Like everything I had already cleared the way from, or cleared the way for, God, the rug was swept out from underneath me, and I had no way to make those connections anymore. And one of the things that's very special about selling your artwork at an expo is the personal connection you get to make. Like I can put my artwork out online. Because of my wireworks 3-dimensional, it's hard to photograph. And it's also very dark. It's kind of dark and creepy in the subject matter, but the artwork itself, it's not bursting with color necessarily. So it's hard to capture the experience of what that artwork's like in like photographs and stuff like that, just putting them on the internet. But if you come to my booth at an expo, you can come in, you can look at stuff, you can touch things. I encourage people to play with my artwork because it's wire sculpture and not just like a rigid sculpture. It's sculpture you can play with. You can go and you get bored of it being in one position, you can bend all the horns and shape it into a completely new skull. And it invites that sense of play that I think I had that came through with me playing with my own artwork as a kid. And it also helped make that connection with me because I'm not just selling my artwork as my art, but I'm selling myself as an artist with my work. So I was missing that connection. In 2018, I messed around with Twitch. I first got involved in doing live streaming there with some friends of mine who were avid Twitch watchers and stuff like that. So I slowly started buying equipment to facilitate streaming online. And so I knew I was going to be making all this artwork anyways. I figured I might as well branch out into a new type of social media to try to create a new audience and go from there. And so I started with Twitch, got a small following. I didn't get very far with it. And I did it from probably June of 2018 up till the end of October. I started off by showing me make all of my wire work and all the work I was preparing to take with me to the Seattle Tattoo Expo. And after that, I shifted to pumpkins and started carving pumpkins on there. And at the end of the Halloween season, I just gave it up. I didn't have a lot of balance, though. I was just streaming whenever I was making artwork. I didn't have a set schedule or anything. And so I think by the end of it, I was streaming so much, and I didn't have a lot of know-how and vision about how to go about it the right way or in a healthy way, that in the end, I just let it go, and it was still there. I still had my account, but I left it to the side. And then when 2020 rolled around, I realized, man, I need to find a way to bridge that gap, that what's missing from being able to fulfills my calling or my purpose in life that I'm missing by not being able to get out and do these expos. I need to be able to create, and I need to be able to show my work, and I need to be able to talk to people and have that connection with me. So I realized, hey, I need to get back in Twitch. And I had a buddy of mine who was getting back into streaming pretty heavily at the same time, and so we kind of did it together, and we fed off each other, and we grew our communities and we intertwined our communities, and it's just been growing since then. And I haven't stopped. I immediately went into it with a set schedule so that I wouldn't feel overworked. I stream every Tuesday and then most Thursdays. And most Thursdays means I stream every Thursday, but I reserve the right not to. And so that I don't have to always feel like I'm going on performing. And then I can stream bonus times here and there, but it's been a very good balance for me. I am able to still work a full-time job, but it also still maintain being very creative, and people see my artwork, and if they like it, they can invest in it. And I've streamed enough that I've gained enough following on there that I've moved from like the realm of just dabbling in Twitch as a hobby to becoming an affiliate, which means that I can make a certain level of residual income off of it, which is really nice. And it's just been kind of feeding itself and going from there.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I don't know a ton about Twitch other than I watch Twitch much more when I'm watching you. What is a kind of basic gear idea? Somebody who doesn't have a bunch of money, but maybe they want to get a Twitch thing going, either for gaming, where I think the Elgato is important. What are some kind of key pieces to put together to start a Twitch stream from your perspective?
I think as in a basic level, you need a computer. You need a computer, and you also need a broadcasting program. And so the most common one people use is called OBS. There's a lot of varieties of that. I use the OBS Studio, which is like the first and foremost one. That was the first one I heard of when I got involved in Twitch, and I just never bothered digging into the other ones. A lot of other companies have put together their own broadcasting software, as I understand it. Like Streamlabs has their own Streamlab version of OBS that's more integrated with what they're doing, so that this company can provide you with extra tools, and then they can kind of monetize some of the things that you can do to make your stream fancier. But OBS, or I think it's Open Broadcast Systems or Source or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of it. I don't know the acronym. I'm not that fancy. But it just allows you to build the content that you are going to share with people. Twitch is a vehicle. It gives you that place to have your own TV show, essentially. And so you need to bring in your own studio to make that show happen. So OBS is a tool that once you learn it, you have scenes and you have media that you import into these scenes, and you arrange them like you would do layers in Photoshop. Because I have a lot of experience with Photoshop, it came pretty naturally and easy to me. I've gotten better at it. There's a lot of other things that move behind the scenes to make a thing fancier, with user engagement, like in the chat, where people can do a command and it makes funny things happen on stream or stuff like that. There's a little bit of, depending on, it's whatever you make it. People are doing wild things on Twitch. It's really, really an amazing creative atmosphere. And I've only tapped into a tiny little portion of it, enough that's working for me now. Mm-hmm. Not enough to speak for everybody else. But I mean, if you wanted to stream gaming and things like that, you need a computer that's powerful enough to do those types of things.
Yeah.
So
that's the graphics and the processor and the RAM. He's trying to do kind of a lot.
Yeah, Elgato makes these capture cards that are really well. There's external ones you can use, like the Elgato HD60S, I think, is a little USB one where it has you can just plug in an HDMI input into it, and so that brings your signal in. So and then it has a HDMI out as well. So you'd bring the signal into your computer and then out, and so allows you, if you're on console gaming, console's still running the game for you, but then your laptop or your computer can focus on creating that broadcast experience, which you then upload to Twitch. So the other part that you'd need to have to be able to stream to Twitch is the internet, because it's a streaming technology, right? So it's not only, but it's not only about having a good download. You need to make sure you have a good upload too.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's like upload with, it's like your bit rates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know that some companies kind of have a more even upload download speeds, but I know Comcast lately, especially, I was talking to my brother, and his download is like, whatever you pay for, 100, 150, whatever, but his upload is like 5, 6, 7 or something like that.
Right.
So I don't know how you can get away with that doing a stream. I would think you'd need more than that.
The way it affects your stream is it's going to affect your quality. So the
resolution just gets tanked.
Right. And so if you have how can I say this? The stronger your upload is, the more you can raise your bit rate. And the more bit rate you increase that as, allows you to increase your resolution and your frames per second.
Yeah.
And so you can control all of that on OBS. But if you tell your computer to say, hey, I want to play a game in 60 frames per second at 1080p, and you have a really shitty up speed, you're not going to be able to do it. And so what will happen is it'll try to do it, but it'll be real choppy. Yeah. You're going to have
it's going to get like 1 out of 10 frames.
Exactly. Or quite a bit less than that too.
Sure.
Like with my old computer, I was pushing that thing to its absolute limit. And this was just a computer that I had kind of monstered together from my old job out of stuff they were going to get rid of, but it was working for me for a long time. Yeah. But I had set it, I was like, okay, I'm just going to try to do 720p at 30 frames per second. That's my goal. That's where I want to be at. It seems like a really good quality stream. It looks great on phones. And I was able to get 480p at 10 frames per second. It
Yeah.
was the best I could possibly get. And if
Yeah.
I raised it up above that, it wasn't going to work at all. But
That's like really base
Very
level
choppy,
security footage.
if you aren't
Yeah.
like with an art stream, like the stuff that I do, if I'm not moving around all crazy or doing a whole bunch of stuff, you
It's
don't really
fine.
notice
Yeah.
it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
But you do some crazy stuff on your stream nowadays.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's a ride.
it's nice. But it's
Yeah.
nice because the computer that I have now can facilitate doing those things with the higher upstream.
Yeah.
Even though that I still have a pretty low bit rate because guys like Comcast. That's the thing about Comcast with. They will advertise like, oh, we can give you this speed or this speed or this speed, but
Mhm.
all they're talking about is download.
Yeah.
When it comes down to even asking a customer service rep at Comcast, how do I increase my upspeed? They don't
Mhm.
know what I'm talking about half the time. That's why their service is terrible.
Yeah.
real bad
It's
service.
a real problem.
Real awful company.
We need more. We need more competition in the internet space. People need to take over some of their infrastructure, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole ISP space is its own situation because it's not consistent across the board. I know other
No.
streamers that are probably paying for like similar internet packages to what I have where I'm at, but
Mm-hmm.
their Comcast up speeds are upwards to 15 to 20 and they're getting less down than I'm up right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
wonder if it's regional or something. Like there's just different places in the U.S. and they have different rules.
Well, if you think of like the way the internet works as a whole and you have
I don't know how the internet works.
I mean,
What is going on there?
I can't.
It's like
I'm
bias
I'm not
and
smart enough to be able to
satellites and
explain it in detail. But in layman's terms, you have this one set of providers that provide the pipes for the internet to go
Yeah.
across America, and then an ISP or internet service provider like Comcast. It's their job to tap into that pipe and then connect it to your house, and
Mhm.
that's who you're paying for them is their access to get access to that larger base
Mhm.
of internet, and they're the bottleneck.
Yeah.
When it comes to hitting these like really high speed pipes that run everywhere.
I've heard Elon Musk is going to set up satellites that are designed just for like small groups of people to have very, very fast internet speeds. I think it'll get figured out here soon enough where it won't be a bottleneck as much anymore. Something will happen. I think that Google's always talking about fiber and all this stuff. So
Well, yeah, all the more
hopefully
power
all
to
that
them.
stuff happens.
Once we have more competition in the market, where it's like you don't have these places where only Comcast is your only
Yeah.
source of internet, or only Time Warner or whatever, which is I think also Comcast. I'm not-
Probably all the same company.
Yeah, they just have this monopoly on your ability to access the internet. And then
Yeah.
the things that happened during the Trump administration with net neutrality, how that kind of took a step back, where now internet service providers have a lot more say. If Netflix pays them more, they can guarantee that Netflix's traffic is going to get priority over other people's
really?
traffic and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I was doing something the other day, and it was one of the options was to get better traffic speeds or whatever. Maybe it was when I was buying the new web hosting for a
Mhm.
website or whatever. I don't know much about it. I feel mostly at the whim of these big companies to provide what they provide, and I can use it. And
That's
if
how
I
it
don't
feels,
like
yeah.
it, too friggin' bad. So the last thing I want to chat about is more ethereal.
oh yeah.
What types of environments, objects, people, circumstances inspire you in a way that makes you want to stop what you're doing and go make art or plan something out to make? Is there a circumstance or like what kind of inspires or gets you motivated to go do something now?
I don't know. Maybe it's more of like a calling. Like
Okay.
it's not necessarily like if I'll definitely look at other people's artwork and then see that stuff. I'm more of a doer. Like I almost think of it like a learning disability. Like I have a real hard time paying attention to things. As soon as I see someone doing something, I want to do it myself. I want to go just like I don't learn by reading through watching a whole bunch of videos and tutorials first, and then learning from those and doing that. I want to immediately dive in and try to mess with my hand, work with my hands to make it happen. And as far as the calling goes, like it's just something I feel like I have to do. Like this is the thing that I want to make, and it's all I think about. It's my passion is to continue to create and make fucking weird and wonderful things as much as I possibly can. So,
Right on.
yeah.
How can people get a hold of you? What's your websites, Twitches, Instagrams? What is it?
Yeah. So
Plug it up.
if you want to see all my stuff, you You can start with my full online portfolio. That's edwardsartanddesign.com. I have everything there. Links to all of the other social media can be found within there. Otherwise, across Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, and a few other social media platforms, you can find me at JO3Y3DWARDS. That's my @ name, I guess. It's Joey Edwards with threes instead of E's, because a long time ago I thought that'd be cool.
That's
and
fun
I
back
can't,
then.
yeah, it was fun back then, and I just can't get away from it now. And it's built into my brand. It's fine. It works. I've tried to think of a better name for it, but
well, the nice thing is links.
Yeah,
you don't need to know it. You just look up Joey Edwards; it'll find you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if I change that, then all those old links would break.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny. Yeah. I have some old email addresses that I'm pretty ashamed of giving out.
Yeah. Otherwise, Edward, if you just search for Edwards Art and Design across you'll find the things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on my podcast. Thank you for sharing, and I guess that's it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Joey.
Thank you.